Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari
Jai Radha Madhava. He's gonna Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvikacharya Ashtudarsha Shishimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvikacharya Ashtudarsha Shishimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopana Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Navidweep Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samavera Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. So today we'll be reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, text 21. Trividam narakasydam twaram nashanam atmanah kama krodhas tatalobas tasmad itat trayam tyajit. So this verse is translated as, there are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The beginning of demoniac life is described herein. One tries to satisfy his lust, and when he cannot, anger and greed arise. A sane man who does not want to glide down to the species of demoniac life must try to give up these three enemies, which can kill the self to such an extent that there will be no possibility of liberation from this material entanglement. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So in Kali Yuga, these three are actually the goals of life: to satisfy one's lust, any way he can or she can, and that anger is a source of power. And greed for fame and wealth is a characteristic in someone who is considered successful. But the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas do not approve of this. Srila Prabhupada, he says that when a man is haunted by a ghost, he speaks nonsense. So similarly, when a man is haunted by Maya or illusion, he says all sorts of nonsensical things, such as God is dead or I am God. And Prabhupada says this is the last snare of Maya, to think that oneself is God, the creator, the source of everything. And so these three actually blinds our real intelligence. Lust covers austerities. Just like, please forgive me, this idea of boyfriend and girlfriend, Srila Prabhupada said it promotes prostitution. The women, she gets used. And when they break up, she's enjoyed again by another man. So it is a form of prostitution. And so the idea of marriage is not a favorable one. When people hear the word marriage, it denotes a certain bad reputation. And anger, it covers compassion and mercy. Just like when I go out on book distribution, a lot of people tell me that they're a good person. But one has to understand what is good. And my spiritual master, His Holiness Badrinarayan Swami Maharaj, he uses this very good example. That an elder son is very sick. He has a very restricted diet. And when the parents leave the house, he tells his younger brother, hey, I want cake, I want soda. And these are actually restricted in his diet. And the little brother, he wants to do good. So when the parents leave, he goes to the fridge, he gives them a nice slice of cake and soda. And when the parents come home, the elder brother is in a very critical condition. So the younger brother might want to do good, but he doesn't know what is actually good. So similarly, there's a lot of demoniac, you can say, philosophies out there. Do good as long as you don't hurt anybody. But they don't understand that meat eating, that's another form of violence. Violence breeds more violence. But when you show compassion and mercy to animals, it's a sign of intelligence. And anger hurts two people. The person who is giving, the person who is angry, and the one receiving the anger. And when we lose ourselves to anger, we say so many things that we don't want to say, and we do things that we don't mean to do. Marriages, relationships, they are sometimes broken due to not being able to control anger. And greed covers truthfulness. I have an uncle, and he gambled his mortgage money. He wanted more money and more money. And when my auntie found out, she kicked him out of the house. And my uncle, he started lying just to cover his excuse. And it says that if one is greedy for riches, he will either beg, borrow, or steal. Any way he can, he will try to accumulate wealth. And Srila Prabhupada, he says that a well-dressed fool cannot be detected. So how can you identify him? Prabhupada says as soon as he speaks, he reveals himself at once. So a person may be dressed nicely. He may have so many material qualifications, but what is the actual content in his words? Is it beneficial for others? Is it pleasant to hear? When I went on book distribution today, I asked people, if you can give me advice on how to be a better person, what would it be? And a lot of people tell me, treat others how you would like to be treated, be truthful. These are all nice, but most of them, they don't come from authoritative scriptures. They're just simply, we call it mental concoction. And a lot of people that I meet, they want to be a better person, but there's a tinge of attachment, whether it's this or that, whether it's, I shouldn't name it. But, so yeah, everyone wants to be a good person because the soul is naturally Satchit Ananda. It's eternal, full of knowledge, and we're seeking for bliss, pleasure. But we can't find that in the material world. Just like a fish. If you take a fish and you put it on land, you may give it the best fashionable clothing, a big mansion, but it'll never be satisfied because that fish belongs in the ocean. So similarly, we are spirit souls and we belong in the spiritual world. That is our eternal home. So no matter what we do in this material world, we may claim it to be pleasure and happiness, but Prabhupada, he says it's just like a drop in the ocean. But more than that, it's a drop in the desert. How long will it last? Because we all know that the nature of this material world is temporary. And there are 3 phases of time: past, present, and future. And the real principles of life, they are the same, they don't change. Just like there's a law of nature. The sun, millions of years ago, would rise very early in the morning. And still rises early in the morning in the present moment also. So this is considered the laws of nature. And millions of years ago, all living entities were interested in 4 things: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And that is still present in today's time. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And Srila Prabhupada, he would say, we just do it in a polished way. An animal runs on 4 legs, but humans, we now run on 4 wheels, cars. It's the same, but it's polished. So in the past, there were also demoniac people. There are now. Just like the demons, Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, and Kamsa, and so many demons. But their mentality of life is still the same as the present demons now. To accumulate wealth as much as you can, to exploit others, and to cheat others. And the demons, they want to enjoy the kingdom of God, but without God. Just like Ravana. He wanted to take the heavenly kingdom, Yodhya, but he also wanted to take Sita, Mother Sita. So he was willing to kidnap another person's wife. So that's another sign of a demoniac mentality. And Srila Prabhupada, he would quote Chanakya Pandit. And Chanakya Pandit says that we should see every woman as mother. And if they're younger than us, then as a daughter. So there's no question of lust. And the demons are attracted to women, wine, and gold. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he describes the qualities of a demoniac person. And it's very interesting. He says, those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and arrogance, these qualities belong to the demoniac nature. Following such conclusions, the demoniac, who are lost to themselves and who have no intelligence, engage in unbeneficial, horrible works meant to destroy the world. So now they're creating bombs, atomic bombs, and it's meant to actually destroy civilizations. These demons, they don't see other living creatures, especially other humans, as humans. They see them as an enemy, right? Just like when I tell people, when I cut myself, I bleed red. My blood is red. So the animals, when you cut them, they also bleed red. So they feel pain. But people who have lack of knowledge, they don't understand the simple truth. And the demons are not clean, either externally or internally. One should always be careful to keep his body clean by bathing, brushing teeth, shaving, changing clothes, etc. As far as internal cleanliness is concerned, one should always remember the holy names of God and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada says that this chanting, it cleanses the heart. It cleanses the heart, it cleanses the consciousness, because Krishna's name is pure. That's the meaning of absolute. Krishna's name and his form, pastimes, is not different than himself. And everyone in this material world is searching after happiness. The ant is searching for sugar, for little crumbs, and the hogs are looking for stool. And the human beings are searching for pleasure through the senses. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it describes 5 animals. The deer has a heightened sense of hearing. The moth has its eyes. The elephant is looking for happiness through touch. And the bees are using their sense of smell to find honey. And the fish by its taste. So what can we learn from these animals? The deer is captured by the whistle or sound by a hunter, its ears. And what they do is they would hide in a bush, or they would hide somewhere far. And when the deer is close enough, they would blow this whistle. And the deer would be attracted to it, and then the hunter captures or shoots it. So it loses its life by hearing. The fish sees a worm on a hook, and it loses its life in that way, vision. It can eat plenty of other things in the sea, but it can't hold its tongue. So when it sees that yummy, delicious worm, it gets hooked. And the elephant sees a she-elephant and wants to enjoy by touch. So this is what they would do. They would dig a hole and they would cover it. So when the male elephant comes close enough, it falls in the hole. It tries its might, everything can do to escape, and then eventually becomes exhausted. And that's how they catch elephants. And the bees, they find a lotus flower, and it becomes intoxicated by the scent, the pollen, and it falls asleep. And then the lotus flower at night, it actually closes. So the bee loses its life by smell. And a moth loses its life by following a bright light, not knowing it is actually fire or flame. With the human being, all 5 senses are active, highly active. Smell, touch, taste, hear, and sight. So we should be very careful. And we want to enjoy through these senses, but there are 3 miseries that are forced upon us. And we were just reading about this in the morning class. There's Adi Daivika, Adi Atmika, and Adi Bhautika. And Adi Daivika are miseries that are caused by higher authorities, like the demigods. An example is sometimes the devotees, we get fired up to go on Sankirtan, book distribution, but it starts raining, so we can't. So what can we do? So we don't have control over the conditions. And Adi Atmika are miseries that are caused by the body and mind themselves. And this is actually a very big problem. Depression, suicide, loneliness. These are all miseries caused by our own minds. And Krishna, he says in the Bhagavad Gita, for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his very mind will remain his greatest enemy. So how is our mind behaving? Is it our friend or is it our worst enemy? And Adi Bhautika are miseries or sufferings caused by other living entities. An example is, let's say someone is very tired and they want to take rest, but an ant comes and bites him. See? He didn't want that, but the ant bites him. Or if someone is taking rest and a mosquito bites him or her and it causes itching, we don't want these miseries to happen, but it's forced upon us one way or another. And the rebellious attitude against God is Maya, or illusion. So anyone who is declaring that he is God, that you are God, that there is no God, he is under the spell of Maya. Because when you think about it, the sun and the moon, they rise exactly at the same time for all 4 seasons. So wherever there's pattern, symmetry, and design, that means there's intelligence behind it. Just like this watch, it's so complex. And when people say this was created out of nothing, right? By chance or by material elements, it doesn't make sense. So this world, there is a creator, and his name is Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, he says that the main disease is that we want to become a master. We want to take Krishna's position. And people are so attached to family life. We want to live in a family, wife, husband, children, father, and mother, but it is not possible to live here eternally. That is not possible. And Krishna says, Mrityu sarva harashamcha. I am all devouring death. So Krishna says, you may think you are very happy in family relationships, but I will not allow you to stay here. I will take everything away from you as death. So a wise man will ask, where is that family where I can live eternally and enjoy? That is Krishna's family. Enter into Krishna's family, his Vrindavan family, where Krishna has his father, mother, his friends, his lovers, his cows, his garden, and his Yamuna. So we should join that family, and we shouldn't enter another temporary material family. And Krishna is inviting us. He's inviting us. But we are so foolish that we're refusing. We want to stay here to rot life after life. There's a nice pastime that I always remember. It's Lord Indra. He's the king of heavenly planets. And he was cursed by his spiritual master, Brihaspati. So in his offense, he was cursed to live in a hog's body here on earth. So he found a she-pig, and they had kids, and they had little piglets. And after some time, Lord Brahma, he said, there's no administrator for the heavenly planets. So he came down here, and he asked King Indra, my dear Indra, please come back to your heavenly kingdom. But you know what Indra did? He refused. He said, I have so much responsibilities here. I have my wife, my kids, all these attachments. So Krishna is seeing us like that. He's inviting us, Sarva Dharmam Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, to give up all these forms of dharmas and surrender to him. But we don't want to. We think we're happy here, just like Indra. He's the king of the heavenly planets, but instead he wants to live here. He wants to eat stool. And Srila Prabhupada, he says that the hog is very unclean. It will mate with its mother, sister, or daughter. He doesn't take in consideration. So imagine that lifestyle, from being king in heaven, the opulence, the riches, the pleasure, versus living in a hog's body. And he's satisfied with that. So why not join Krishna's family? And there are actually 5 rasas, or different relationships we have with Krishna. Shanta ras, Dasya ras, Sakya ras, Vatsalya ras, and Madhurya ras. So Krishna is not impersonal. He has his own family. When I say Krishna, I mean the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has his friends, everything. Just like in this world, it's also reflected. So Dasya ras means master to servant, like a boss and his employee. And Sakya ras is friendship, friends to friends. And Vatsalya ras is parentalhood, mother and son. So we see this in the world. And Madhurya ras is the taste between husband and wife, or lover and beloved. So all these relationships are here in the material world, but they're reflections of the real world, spiritual world. So if you want real friendship, then make friendship with Krishna. An example is Arjuna and Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god. Vivishvan, millions of years ago. Then Arjuna, he asked, you and I are contemporaries. Contemporaries. How can I understand you spoke this philosophy to the sun god? So basically he's saying, how am I to understand that you are older than me? So Krishna tells him, many, many births, both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. So that means that Krishna was always with Arjuna. He was his eternal friend. So if you make friendship with Krishna, it will never be broken. Unlike the relationships that we establish here in the material world, it's broken. And Srila Prabhupada, he says, it's just like straws in the ocean. These straws, they form at one time. They stick together, and then throughout time, they get separated. So yeah. And if you make Krishna your son, he will never be lost. He will never deviate from Dharma or from truthfulness. In the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada says, generally for the householders, the children are the life and breath source. When all the children die, then naturally the parents also die on account of strong affection for them. This was because there was a demon, Aghasura. He wanted to kill Krishna. So Aghasura was thinking, if I kill Krishna, it will also kill his parents, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj. And we're making temporary relationships in this material world that has been broken. So many families. So we should join Krishna's family. What time do I stop?
5 more minutes.
Huh?
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes, okay. So I want to tell 2 sweet pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. So there's a devotee named Madhu Dwisha Das Prabhu, and he was the president of the Bombay ISKCON. And he expressed his dissatisfaction, particularly in working with the Indians, right? He says that the Indians, they were very sneaky and tricky. So then Srila Prabhupada says, I'm Indian. Do you think I'm very tricky? So he says, no, not you, Srila Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada, he says, actually, I am tricky. Because I've tricked all of you into surrendering to Krishna. And now you're caught and you cannot get away. So that was Srila Prabhupada's humor. And there's another pastime of Prabhupada. When he went back to India for the first time with his American disciples, he sometimes would take tours on holy places in Vrindavan or Mayapur. So one day Prabhupada was with some of his disciples in an old Dodge automobile to visit the city called Devanagar, the birthplace of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And they found out that this old Dodge didn't have a horn, you know, when you honk. And I heard that in India, without a horn, it's basically impossible to get around. Is that true? Yeah. So, so the journey was anticipated to take about 2 hours. So Srila Prabhupada, he devised a horn. What he did was he found a metal plate in the car. And then he told his disciples to stop the car, and he picked up a stick. So when they were riding along, Srila Prabhupada, he would hold the plate outside the window and bang on it. And then Prabhupada would use this horn for passing cars or shooing people and animals from the road. The devotees were amazed and overjoyed at the simple display of Prabhupada's horn. And then Prabhupada, he says, this will be copied by the Indians, said Srila Prabhupada. They will think that is a new American invention. They will also get plates and sticks and use them instead of the horn. So yeah, so that's all I have. Thank you for your time and attention. I think we're going to have Tulsi Puja next. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna.